The Welcome to Fabulous Las Vegas sign is usually the first stop for millions of tourists. The line for that photo is noticeably shorter this spring, and Sin City visitors are paying more.
We were here last year, almost exactly the same time, and it was probably 20% more this year.
$9 for a coffee. Like in the UK, that's what, like we pay £4, £5 for a coffee. So yeah, crazy.
Once upon a time, MGM was the heartbeat of Las Vegas. The company owned more hotel rooms than anyone on Earth, its neon skyline defining the Strip itself. But in 2025, that empire is cracking. Behind the glittering signs and billion-dollar towers, thousands of workers are being laid off. Casino floors sit half-empty. Restaurant wings go dark midweek. MGM Resorts International, once a symbol of endless growth, is quietly collapsing. This isn't a rumor. It's happening in real time. Revenues are sliding, rooms are cheaper, investors are nervous. And inside the company, insiders say departments are being merged, projects canceled, and service levels gutted just to stay alive. The truth is, when MGM trembles, all of Las Vegas shakes, because MGM is Las Vegas. It owns a third of the Strip. It built the fantasy that millions came to chase. And now, it's fighting for survival. What caused the collapse of America's biggest casino empire? How did the city of excess become the symbol of decline? Tonight, we pull back the curtain on the fall of MGM. Part 1. The cracks begin to show. The warning signs started quietly. At first, it was just small cost cutting, shorter buffet hours, fewer valet attendants. Guests waited longer for towels, for check-ins, for drinks that used to arrive in minutes. Then came the layoffs. More than 500 positions cut in spring, most of them frontline. Housekeepers, waiters, bellhops, the people who are the Vegas experience. MGM called it operational efficiency. Insiders called it a panic move. Because behind the scenes, the company's finances were bleeding. Occupancy rates across MGM properties from Mandalay Bay to Excalibur fell 4 points in just 6 months. And even as prices dropped to pre-pandemic levels, the rooms stayed empty. Casino floors that once buzzed 24/7 now echo with silence during weekdays. Dealers stand idle. Bartenders polish the same glasses for hours. MGM's massive empire, 35,000 rooms, 77,000 employees, has become too heavy to carry in a shrinking city. One former employee put it bluntly, "It feels like the Titanic. Management keeps smiling, but everyone below deck knows we're taking on water." For years, MGM's size was its strength. Now, it's its biggest weakness. When the economy slows, when tourists pull back, when high rollers stay home, MGM can't pivot. It can only cut. And every cut makes the experience worse, driving away even more customers. This is the cycle of decline, and MGM is trapped inside it.
Part 2. The numbers don't lie. For years, MGM's numbers told a story of unstoppable growth. Record room rates, record convention bookings. But that story has flipped. Fast. In the first half of 2025, Las Vegas welcomed nearly 1 million fewer visitors than the same period last year. And no company has been hit harder than MGM. Across its properties, average occupancy has slipped to just over 84%, down from nearly 90% a year ago. That might not sound like much, until you realize that a 5% drop in MGM means thousands of empty rooms across all of its properties per night. When you operate on the scale MGM does, from the Bellagio's fountains to the neon castle of Excalibur, empty rooms are poison. Every unbooked night isn't just lost revenue. It's wasted power, wasted labor, wasted debt. Because the truth is, MGM doesn't own most of its hotels outright anymore. It rents them from real estate trusts. So even when rooms go dark, MGM still pays millions every month in fixed leases. Add to that rising wages, soaring utility costs, and weaker gaming revenue, and the numbers start to break. MGM's debt load now sits in the tens of billions, and interest rates are no longer near zero. What was once cheap leverage has turned into a financial chokehold. To stay liquid, MGM's been selling off assets, spinning properties into REITs, offloading land, and licensing the MGM name instead of operating the hotels themselves. It looks like strategy, but it feels like survival. And here's the dangerous part. The Strip runs on confidence, the illusion that everything is fine, that the lights will never dim. But when investors start doubting that, the magic fades fast. MGM's empire isn't built on stone. It's built on credit, confidence, and crowds, and all three are cracking at once.
Part 3. Inside the collapse. The numbers tell one story. The people tell another. Inside MGM's hotels, the collapse doesn't look dramatic. It looks quiet. Hours cut, shifts shortened, familiar faces gone. Maria, a housekeeping supervisor at the MGM Grand, spent 13 years keeping the rooms spotless. This summer, her schedule dropped from 5 days to 3. No overtime, no tips. She says, "I used to cover groceries with my tips. Now I'm behind on rent." James, a security guard at the Luxor, once worked full-time. Now he gets 2 shifts a week, sometimes 1. He says, "It's like the Strip's asleep. Half the lights are still on, but nobody's here." Multiply their stories by thousands. Bartenders, dealers, room attendants, cooks, all feeling the same slow collapse ripple through their lives. When MGM trims non-essential labor, it's not just a spreadsheet entry. It's the woman who cleaned your suite, the guy who parked your car, the cocktail server who made your night memorable. These workers are the invisible infrastructure of Las Vegas, and they're disappearing. On the surface, the casinos still shine, but behind the curtains, morale is evaporating. One MGM employee said it best. "They want us to smile for guests while they're taking away our hours. The lights are bright, but the people behind them are burning out." And here's the danger. When the people who built the experience start giving up, the illusion of Vegas breaks with them. Because the real foundation of MGM isn't steel or neon, it's people. Part 4. The ripple effect. When MGM sneezes, the whole Strip catches a cold. Because in Las Vegas, everything connects. The taxi driver's income depends on hotel occupancy. The bartender at a small off-strip lounge depends on tourists spilling over from MGM properties. The restaurants, retail shops, wedding chapels, all of them feed off MGM's gravitational pull. So when MGM cuts shifts, the ripple spreads. Local restaurants report slower weekends. Rideshare drivers say business has fallen by nearly 1/3 since summer. Even smaller casinos are quietly slashing hours, following MGM's lead. It's a domino effect hiding in plain sight. When tens of thousands of tourists stop flowing through MGM's doors, they don't just skip one resort, they skip the city entirely. And the Strip starts to show it. Once busy pedestrian bridges are empty midweek. Gift shops on the ground floor of hotels sit dark behind temporarily closed signs. A few years ago, these places were packed shoulder to shoulder with visitors. Now, it feels like a movie set after the crew's gone home. Locals are feeling it too. Grocery prices are up, rent has climbed, and the tips that once made service jobs survivable are disappearing. The machine that made Vegas possible is stalling. And while city officials try to frame it as a temporary slump, insiders aren't convinced. They call it what it is, the first visible crack in a tourism economy stretched to its limit. Because when your city's largest employer starts pulling back, when its biggest casinos are half full and its workers are leaving the industry, you're not just watching a company in decline, you're watching the city built around it begin to wobble. And the scariest part, the worst might still be ahead.
Part 5. The breaking point. Inside MGM's corporate offices, the tone has changed. The optimism that once fueled billion-dollar expansions has been replaced by silence and spreadsheets. On paper, MGM still looks powerful, but behind the balance sheet, executives are scrambling to keep the lights on. Debt payments are rising, credit lines are tightening, and every quarter, the company quietly sells off another asset to stay afloat. First, it was the Mirage, then the MGM Growth Properties spinoff. Now, whispers suggest even flagship real estate could be next. Insiders describe emergency meetings where upper management debates which departments to cut next. Housekeeping, entertainment, even security. One former manager called it corporate triage. They're not trying to fix the patient. They're just keeping it breathing. It's not just about money. Morale among executives is crumbling. Department heads have started leaving for rival casinos. Middle managers, once loyal for decades, are quietly updating resumes. And with each departure, institutional memory vanishes. The people who actually knew how to keep this complex machine running. MGM's leadership insists these are strategic adjustments, but even shareholders are starting to question the narrative. Revenue down, debt up, stock slipping. A company once too big to fail, now weighed down by its own ambition. The empire that built Las Vegas has hit its breaking point. The question now isn't whether MGM can recover. It's whether it can survive itself.
Part 6. The Aftershocks. When the biggest name in Las Vegas starts to fall, everyone feels it. The effects of MGM's collapse aren't confined to one company. They're spreading through the entire ecosystem that depends on the illusion of endless prosperity. Caesars Entertainment has already begun tightening operations. Wynn Resorts has frozen new hires. Even off-strip hotels, the ones that cater to locals, have reported slower weekends, lower bookings, and shrinking profit margins. Real estate is showing cracks too. Rental listings are rising again after years of record demand, and small business owners in tourist corridors are quietly closing their doors. A bar owner near the former Tropicana put it simply, "When MGM's people stop showing up for work, my regulars disappear too." The dominoes keep falling. Fewer visitors mean less tax revenue. Less tax revenue means fewer city services. And as city budgets tighten, the same workers who built the Vegas dream are the ones paying the price. But it's not just Vegas. Investors are watching closely from New York to Macau. Wall Street analysts have started calling MGM a canary in the coal mine for America's tourism-driven cities. Because if Las Vegas, the most famous entertainment hub in the world, can falter this hard, what does that say about the rest of the country? What happens to Miami, Orlando, Atlantic City? Places built on the same fragile foundation of credit, spectacle, and hope. MGM's struggle is exposing something deeper, a national shift away from the fantasy of endless spending. For decades, Vegas sold the American dream in neon lights, but in 2025, that dream looks like it's running out of credit.
Part 7. The Reckoning. MGM was never just a company. It was a symbol of ambition, excess, and American optimism. For decades, it built the skyline that defined the Strip. It hosted the biggest fights, the loudest shows, the wildest weekends. But symbols can collapse too, and when they do, they take more than profits with them. They take the mythology that held everything together. Behind every darkened hotel window, there's a laid-off worker wondering if Vegas still has a place for them. Behind every closed buffet, a story of a family that relied on it. And as MGM's empire contracts, the fantasy it sold begins to fade. City leaders say Vegas will recover. It always does. But this time, it feels different, because this isn't about a recession or a pandemic or a bad quarter. This is about a city that pushed too far for too long until the house stopped winning. MGM's fall is more than a corporate failure. It's a reflection of a nation addicted to spectacle, to leverage, to the illusion that growth never ends. When the Strip was booming, MGM looked unstoppable. But in the end, it was never the lights that powered Las Vegas. It was the people who kept them on. And they're leaving. So the question now isn't whether MGM will survive. It's whether Las Vegas can survive without the dream that built it. Because when the lights go out on the Strip, it's not just a company that disappears. It's the illusion of forever. This is more than a story about Las Vegas. It's a warning to every empire that thought the lights would never go out.